an updated version of the JMX agent installation against the Weblogic server. I have a fresh Foglight server installation here, and I'm going to set up a JMX agent. Going to Application Server Administration and then Set Up Agents, JMX connection URL. Then we have to choose the Foglight Agent Manager from which we'll be monitoring that Weblogic server, and then press Next. We can use the Connection Info Assistant. Choose Weblogic server. Give it a host name, a port, and a Weblogic home. We'll give it the Weblogic admin host and the port that we use when we connect to the admin host, and then giving it a Weblogic home. Now, important to remember, we're doing remote monitoring here. And when I'm using Weblogic home, that will be Weblogic home on the same server or the same machine that I'm running the agent manager on. We actually have to have Weblogic jars. The easiest thing for me is pretty much to have an inactive Weblogic server installation that's pretty much used just for this. You can take a scaled down version of a Weblogic server installation or a copy of a version of an installation and then use it. And now we're going to press OK. And you can see the class path pretty much indicating to you where that jar file is located, so make sure that that path is correct. You want to use credentials unless your server has no need for credentials. In this case, you can see no credentials found. We'll take care of it later. We will now create a server model. Notice that if you used it before, the server model will actually be there for you, but in our case, it's a fresh install. So create a server model. I'm going to use a copy configuration. We already have templates for monitoring, so I'm just going to use the template that we have here, a Weblogic configuration, and give it an ID, give it a name. In my case, I'm just going to choose the same for the ID and the name. You can assign a server group. In this case, I'm just going to choose the default. And we're going to press Create. The server model was created for us, and that will be the one that we'll use. And do Next. You can use the default Mbin server group, or you can assign a different group. In this case, we'll just take the default. And you have a summary here of the type, the URL, the port, the connection period, and you can give the name for the agent. I'm just going to call it Weblogic JMX. And press Finish. Now, as you can see, the installation ended in failure. We actually have an agent. The agent was created. It's just unable to collect data. If you remember, we had no credentials. So what we're going to do at this point in time is we're going to add credentials. Now you can prepare the credentials in advance. In this case, I just wanted to show the failure and show the process of creating those credentials. I'm going to do Manage Credentials. I'm going to add credentials. In this case, it's pretty much a username and a password. Press Next. We're going to add it to the system lockbox. And then we're going to do resource mapping. We're going to add resource mapping. Notice that there is a usage here. You have to make sure that you're choosing JMX monitoring. If you have additional cartridges, you may have other options that are automatically chosen. Just make sure you have JMX monitoring. And you can have a JMX URL that equals or does not equal something. In my case, I'm just going to go with does not equal. Pretty much would cover all my servers. And Next. And Finish. The next step is to release the lockbox to that agent manager. So I'm going to go to Manage Lockbox, release the client. And this is my agent manager that is intended to monitor the Weblogic server. And we're going to do Release. Now we're going to go back to Application Server Administration. Retry connection. As you can see, the result is success. So the connection has been made, and I can now refresh the view. And we have an agent that is collecting JMX information from my Weblogic server. We're going to give it a couple of collection periods and then go back to my application server monitor. As you can see, under my default Ambient server group, I have a Weblogic JMX agent. And I can drill down, I can look at JVM information, I can look at server information, pretty much all the MBeans that were deployed, or all the MBeans that we're monitoring information from, I can actually see that data.